and this is somebody who's being paid maybe $52,000 a month. This is not past experience, high caliber property manager. This is just somebody who knows how to support households and let them run their houses. That's it.
You're listening to Ice Cream with Investors, a podcast that is dedicated to teaching you how to better invest your money so that you can live a more intentional life. I'm your host, Matt Four, and it is my goal to teach and empower you to remove the roadblocks to your financial success.
All right, Grant, welcome to the show.
Hey, Matt, it's great to be here, man. You always have the funnest show, so I'm in.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Well, we like to start with the difficult questions here. What is your favorite ice cream?
Favorite ice cream is like a turtle like heavy on the chocolate though. So vanilla base, but yeah, ever since I was like 4, man, I'm tried and true.
What, so turtle is chocolate, vanilla, and then is it peanut butter or caramel? It's caramel, right?
It's actually the only thing I've really, because I hear ice cream people debate about this, so we probably should spend the whole show talking about it. But there's always pecan in it, and then like some caramels. Sometimes people put hazelnut, but always it's just like it should just be called, pecan with some other stuff. But turtle is fun. Yeah.
Got it. Well, you're joining us from El Paso today. If we ever find ourselves in El Paso, where is the best place we can go get a bowl of ice cream?
Oh man. So my friend owns the Six Menchie's here, which I guess technically is yogurt. So maybe that's an insult to ice cream. But me and my wife just got a second home down here almost exactly a year ago. So we're still getting to know it. But our place to go is Menchie's because, they charge you by weight, which means it's the most expensive thing you can ever buy.
Yeah. But you get all these toppings and you get to choose how much toppings you want, right? Because you're paying for it.
Yeah. That's why. because I'm loading way too much crap on there.
Yeah. Well, tell our listeners, what's the scoop? What do you do today?
So what I am, not just my vocation, but I'm very, very passionate about it, is co-living, and specifically maybe clearing the way, because there's a lot of confusion of what co-living is, and naturally because the word, the movement 2 years ago, it didn't even have a term. So my first company was called Community Living Homes. But now we finally have a term, which is fun. But yeah, just even helping people to understand what it is, let alone why it is, it's the number one fastest way to financial freedom, because it's just so much in demand by society. And so I love talking about it. I love doing it. It's cool to see, it from all the different dimensions.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we will get into co-living here in a minute, but before we get there, where did your real estate journey begin? How'd you get involved in real estate?
Yeah, so my I made the mistake of reading this terrible book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, and so that gave me, it just ruined my other plans, right? But what happened was that was in like 20 around 2014, and so I thought, hey, I don't care about real estate. I will just learn how Robert Kiyosaki says, I'll use rental real estate, long-term rental real estate, to simply learn business systems, and then I'll go on to who knows what. But what I found out was that my passion, these co-living homes, that I lived in those for 20 years. I actually lived with the OGs of co-living, which is the intentional living community, aka like hippie co-ops, communes, all of that stuff, right? And it was great. I mean, what I learned there, what I benefited from there, where most people in my shoes, because I'm very much plain Joe, I'm just average mainstream guy. We would usually miss out on it because they have this packaging. Like I moved into a house with a vegetarian kitchen, and I normally wouldn't do that. I'm not a vegetarian, right? Or there's Zen Buddhist co-ops, and I'm not a Zen Buddhist, right? There's all these different packages that keep mainstream out, but the jewels, as far as what these people have in creating functional households or functional families, are amazing. So basically, the reason why I went on that is I discovered real estate and the power of it. And I thought it was boring, but I want financial freedom. Then about 3 months into it, I realized, holy cow, like my experience in the intentional living community, I can make a ton of money. I mean, Matt, I went from when I listened to Rich Dad Poor Dad, I was delivering Domino's pizza, renting a corner of a room, not just a room. There was four of us guys in a bigger room. It's called the Bus. I lived in a 26-person house. I drove a shitty Prius, and then when I discovered this, because I was on the real estate get rich slow plan, right? Like it's going to take me 10 years, but I'm going to have financial freedom so I can find that dream babe, marry the daylights out of her, have kids, which you mentioned you've got soccer coming up here soon. So I appreciate the dad stuff, because that's what I always wanted. Anyway, I was like 10 years, it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it. And then when I realized this 15 months later, because of co-living, I had financial freedom. I had a $2 million net worth. I was ready to start looking for that girl. Found her 4 months later. We got pregnant on our honeymoon, married in Rocky Mountain National Park. It's like the dream come true, but it wasn't because like I worked hard. It's just because co-living's badass, right? Like it's like, oh my gosh. So it was nice.
Did you say you lived in a house with 26 people?
I did.
Where was that? Tell us about that.
That was at that time. That was in Austin. It was just north of the UT campus. If you're familiar with the Highland Park area, this kind of stuff. Actually, most of the parts from the intentional living community, which also shouldn't be confused with co-living, because that's really groups of people who they have this thing that really bonds them together. So that happened to be a Christian co-op called Hampton House. Really, really cool people. There wasn't just Christians in there. There was 2 atheists in there because they liked that environment. It was super rad. It used to be a fraternity, but that place in Austin where I got a lot, like I learned so much, was this house called Sunflower Co-op that was started in 1978. But how they had figured out, and they learned, the intentional living community has been around forever, right? But how they learned to not just like enjoy living together, but like have it thrive in their systems, and how holy moly. So yeah, I was in Hampton, but again and again, when people ask me questions, I was like, oh, I learned that from the cool hippies at Sunflower. That was awesome, right?
Yeah.
So
you said that intentional living and co-living are two different things. What's the difference between, well, I guess give us a definition for co-living, and then we'll get into some of the differences.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because right when you're at the 9,000 foot, right, everything can, just big chunks. But then if you're really looking to win, you got to have terminology. So I'll make 3 broad categories. There are and these are all in the adults so unrelated adults are living together in the same residential unit. So typically a house, but there's 3 broad groups of that. There's the intentional living community, and that's going to be people, like I mentioned, that they're not part of mainstream. They might share equity, they might not. I was in one that had a really large organic garden, the vegetarian kitchen I mentioned. Some will have clothing optional Tuesday. That's, everybody thinks that's funny until they like, wait a second, I don't want to be in this house, right? I don't want to be cooking food when somebody walks by naked. That's weird, right? Like, and there's the Zen Buddhists, there's the Christian homes, there's all of these things, but these people have been, the intentional living tradition has been with us always, just operating, in society, but not so much a part of it. Now the second group is transitional housing. Transitional housing is what people usually think about. So this would be a sober living house. It could be a rooming house, so housing for the poor, a boarding house. It might be a halfway house, so people who have been in some kind of detention facility. Also student housing, because student housing, you're only there, it's a transition housing, right? Senior housing, but the definition of transitional housing is somebody doesn't want to be there any longer than they have to, right? Like if somebody can afford to not live in a rooming house, they will go somewhere else, right? Once, and I actually, this is really essential part of housing, or part of housing for society. I have a sober living house, and it is wonderful and it's great. It's such an important service to society. It is not co-living. And that's where lots of renters, or sorry, investors, I get caught up and confused, because transitional housing has a proven record of like, yeah, like the revenue seems so high. Woo, right? We're selling pizza by the slice. We make more money than, renting the whole house out. But the amount of tenant conflict, turnover, property damage, like you need to have a special skill in managing that property. And you probably have to more have like a calling, a vision, that kind of thing to want to do that. It's housing. But again, I love it. If people want to get into that, that's cool. I'm into it. But co-living. So what is co-living? And by the way, Matt, it's some of this stuff gets so, what is it? It's like part of the furniture in my mind. But did I explain those two groups pretty well?
I mean,
Okay.
I never would have thought that like intentional, transitional, and co-living would be all different things. So this is good.
Right. So co-living, and this is what's the great news. So the little, do you mind if I have this thing, it's called the co-living State of the Union. Could I just give the brief, cool little history? Okay. So a lot of people, like for instance, I was just speaking with Scott Trench. We were on an airplane together, flying back from Bigger Pockets conference, right? And he's like, "Hey, I think co-living is going to go away once the economy improves, right?" And that's what a lot of people will think. Oh, this is an issue of affordable housing, right? And it's not that it's not that, but it's not only that. But to say, when we jump back in 2003, for the first time, the number one most common lease was the one-person lease. So a lot of people will dump on, the 2008 subprime mortgage and 60% of builders dropping building properties. But we had this trend from a long time ago, and finally it hit its tipping point in 2003, where we have the same housing inventory, but we have more and more people who are just living alone, period, right? So 3 people live in a house, that house houses 3 people, now it's 1 person. That 3-bedroom apartment, maybe 3 people are living in that, now there's just 1 person. So the same inventory just got sucked up like crazy because of this shift in how people are housing. So I'll kind of fast forward, because we had this financial crisis hit, in 2007, 8, and 9. We had all of these things happen. We had the share economy come up. So, 2010, 2011, Airbnb, Uber, these kind of things happened. At the same time, co-living started. So this idea that people wanted to not sign a lease with strangers, but mainstream people wanted to live with others, so they could enjoy an entire house with its backyard, its front door, its parking, but they'd only have to pay for a room, and they're not living with strangers. And this kind of kept growing, and it's a reason why a lot of us in the investment world, we miss it, because we go off things from, say, the Census Bureau, where this research is a little bit different. But to like get out of the nerdy weeds, from 2012 to 2017, $256 million of venture capital was put into the co-living world. It's just happening like crazy. People don't know about it. But to give that's all been going on. So when the economy sucks, co-living is awesome, because it also is lower cost housing. When the economy is awesome, people are moving everywhere, getting new jobs, all this stuff. Co-living is awesome, because that's been the shift happening since 2003. So that's kind of the foundation, but exactly what it is. is any mainstream person wants to move into a house. They're going to have a lease on a room, and they want to live there for probably a long time. Some people say they're going to move in for 3 or 4 months, and they're still there 3 or 4 years later, right? So that's kind of how life is right now. But this is something where people are putting off marriage, or they got married and they're divorced, or they're widowed. But we have college professors, civil engineers, HVAC technicians, teachers. This is all over the place. And anyway, the co-living, I would define it as very similar to transitional or even the intentional living community, except for it's mainstream and people want to move in there and they want to stay there for a long time and they love it. They like the community on their own terms. They like not owning a house. It's just, I mean, if anything we learned during COVID is that the people you live with, your kind of live with social network, are maybe your most important wealth, right? Because holy moly. Anyway, that's the three the differences. And the money, the co-living is this new thing, and oh my gosh, it makes a lot of money.
I mean, I don't see this as any different than when you first graduate from college and you live with two of your buddies from college who you all move to a different town. The only difference is we're all three paying for a total rent price versus, hey, this is just my price for room. So my first question really comes like, is this a market that you're looking to go into in terms of like a geographic market, that it makes more sense in El Paso, Texas than it does in San Francisco or than it does in Nashville? Are there better markets for this? I guess let's start there.
So yeah, and it's a lot of people will actually even think urban, right? They watched a TV show where it's like, well, Friends, right? Friends, the famous show, right? It's this group of friends, right? You can't afford, New York, you got to live together. We've been doing this forever, all of this stuff. And maybe, but I would say with this, to surprise today, is of my renters in houses, very, very few are students. Maybe in a house of, 8 to 11 people, there will be one student, maybe two. So it's not that it doesn't work for students, but it's not student housing. As far as market goes, it's going to be controlled by two things. One is if it's good for real estate investing, like Jacksonville, Florida is great right now, then it's great, right? If you're interested in cash flow, where other places, if you're interested in appreciation, wherever real estate investing is good, say it has a high MSA score, then it's great. The other thing that though would be a good controlling factor is zoning regulations. If there's a place, so say Fort Collins, Colorado, used to say U+2, meaning you can only have 3 unrelated adults in a house. And they're really big on this. Kind of interesting. I don't know the history behind it. However, so do you want to do this in Fort Collins, Colorado? Well, no, except in July 1st, legislation changed statewide in Colorado where co-living is 100% protected. Any laws like that in Fort Collins just got banned. And this has happened in the state of Oregon, Washington, Austin, Iowa, New York, California. It's a legislation trend. And it is fantastic because, it fixes the housing inventory issue without building more housing, right? It's awesome.
Yeah. And I think so the challenge I see in affordable housing across America is really the regulations it takes to get a house permitted, build, zone, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, there are developers out there that are making a profit. That's why they're in the business. But ultimately, it's the willingness and ability for city council to create new housing. So this, with the stroke of a pen, frees up a lot of dormant housing supply that you are talking about, where, hey, one person lives in a 3-bedroom home.
Hey, fellow investors. Before we dive into our next segment of the show, I wanted to take a quick moment to talk to you about a fantastic opportunity for you to invest with me. As you know, here at Ice Cream with Investors, I'm passionate about real estate investing and helping you navigate the exciting world of wealth creation through real estate. And that's why, for the first time, I'm thrilled to tell you about an opportunity for you to invest alongside of me. Over the past 3 years, I've been investing in multifamily, mobile home parks, car washes. I've even become the bank and lent out money to fellow real estate investors on a short-term basis. And now you can come join me. If you would like to jump on a call and learn more about this opportunity, head to icecreamwithinvestors.com/invest and find a time for us to connect. And now back to the show.
Right. And it's and maybe to put like the rubber hits the road is all of my houses I've ever gotten are on the MLS. We're not doing sub twos. We're not flipping. We're buying them with conventional loans, FHA loans, maybe some DSCRs. So think about your basic five bedroom, 2,500 to 4,400 square foot house. You could drive by this in any neighborhood and everybody does, and you wouldn't even notice, right? And so these houses, as long as they have the right bedroom and bathroom ratio and they fit, because these houses, by the way, if I got a house in a person's neighborhood, that person would be happy my house was there, because that lawn would be the best MF and lawn there, because when you have 8, 9 people living together, there's always one or two guys fighting about taking care of the lawn, right? And when you have these responsible adults, right, it is it's really cool. So to say is it's a very I mean, people are building new builds for co-living. I get that's out there, that's cool, but really, I mean, I've got my hand on the pulse of this. People just want to live in a very typical house, and they're a larger household, a non-traditional household. So they are going to be in what would fit a larger traditional household. And so just to say that's what it looks like. So it's kind of like if somebody wanted to house hack, right? It's like glorious, right? They just collect money for months and months and years and years, rather than those first 12 months, and they have a really difficult time because they don't know how to manage it. Yeah.
You said the right bed to bath ratio. What is that
Mm.
right to bed bath ratio?
Yeah, and it was interesting. I was just there's a large company, just $1 million company, multi-million-dollar company, and the GM and I were hanging out, and they actually have the same ratio, or he thought it was the same, that it should be the same, is 3 bedrooms to 1 bathroom. So one person to a bedroom, right? This isn't transitional housing where, say, if it's sober living, you might have two beds in one, 2 people in one room. So one person to a bedroom, and 3 bedrooms to a bathroom. I'll give only one exception to this, is if a bedroom has a in-suite bathroom. So think about like a master bedroom, then there could be a couple that lives in there, and that works fantastic. And yeah, it's just a typical house. They love it. They take care of it. It usually gets better with each year. And they're set up so that they run themselves. And that's what I learned from the hippies. People don't want chefs. They don't want cleaners coming in. They want to take pride in their house. And when you got 8 people doing 20 minutes of chores a week, it stays super clean. And so they just love it. It's their privacy is respected, and the money rolls in, and they get more for less, and investors get more for less.
So you still have people dealing with people, though, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask about how do you make sure that everybody's respectable to each other's
Mhm.
things and personalities and things like that? How do you kind of keep order within the house?
Yeah, I mean, with just a lot of threats, I think. No, I'm kidding. So
Send
no, no,
Uncle
no, and
Vinny over there.
yeah, no, and maybe I shouldn't joke, because there are slumlords out there. There always have been. They always think they're going to make money, and they always don't, right? The only way for buy and hold investors to really succeed is to really serve and add value to their renters, because they can move elsewhere in most markets, unless you're in transitional housing, right? Then you got desperate people, and you can do whatever you want. And so hopefully you have a good heart. But to say is, with this, your question, I call it the $226 million question because like, how do we get people that are good and they get along? $226 million was put towards, like Ali did it initially, to create kind of an e-harmony for housemates, right? Like, how do you fit people together? It's a great idea until you realize that time when you moved in with your best friends and you all ended up hating each other in 6 months, right? Like, people can have very similar personalities or fit and not work. Where people who live with their families, oftentimes their family members are not their best friends. They're not who they spend the most time with. However, that household is so healthy. Even weird cousin Vinny fits great in that household, or all of this stuff. So to answer your question directly is we call it a 40-point complete household system. A household means two things: the who that lives there and the how they live together. This system, there's not rules all over the place. It's just an understanding. This is how the laundry room works. This is how the kitchen works. This is how parking works. There's enough structure so people feel like safe and grounded, but there's enough freedom where they can be themselves. And so if you have this healthy household, so this complete household system, then it attracts people. Like, when somebody comes to tour that place and they see a clean house, and or they say, wait, there's 10 people in this house and the house is like crickets quiet, right? Because most responsible adults don't spend much time at home. They're at the gym, they're at work, they're out with friends, they're doing whatever. And then they're doing the tour, and somebody from the house is giving them a tour, right? Because you always want to know who might move in with you. And they walk by the chore board and they see that the person who should move in there and fits, they love that. They think, awesome, that's the kind of house I want to be in. The people who just want to party, they just want to do whatever, they think this house is not for me. So most people self-select out. Then along with that, the household has its systems where, say somebody slips through the cracks, or they were a great apple and they went through some tough things in life and they're a bad apple, right? Now, most of those people, then there's positive peer pressure in the house, and they will move out. Like, if they don't do their chore a few weeks in a row and some people are kind of like nudging them, saying, hey, what's up? They get the hint. And in very few circumstances, we have this thing called the 5-on-5 process. I stole it directly from the hippies, and they figured it out. Anyway, it's the reason why I can say our property managers have zero tenant conflicts and have 100% honesty with that, is because because the household handles the conflicts. The renters in the house handle the conflicts, and the property manager never hears about it. They have a problem, that kind of stuff, then they can remove somebody and they let somebody know. The only reason the property manager might get involved is if somebody needs to get evicted. But that's pretty rare. This attracts the right people, it keeps the right people there, and then the right people are able to, they take pride in their house. It kind of becomes a beloved home, and if somebody's caused some problems, they kind of put pressure, and that person moves out.
So to make sure I heard correctly, cool. It's almost like you have a standard operating procedure of like, hey, if you want to live in this home, these are the requirements for living in the home to make it a functioning home. And if somebody falls outside of those requirements, then you've got a process that says, hey, you can settle this here, or we can settle it, which typically means somebody's getting thrown out.
Yeah. And in short, what we call it, there's a household covenant, right? And they see that, and it's rad. And I think the really fantastic thing about that, the good news for us investors, is these homes, they don't need to be marketed to a specific group of people. That any humans that are reasonable and responsible will fit and thrive in these houses. And then part of it built in is that these houses love to run themselves. And so then it suddenly takes way less time. So it's actually the kind of sub narrative out there in the real estate investor world is, hey, rent by the room, co-living, you call it whatever you want. That's just not worth the trouble. Too much work. Where actually, I mean, holy moly. I mean, one of our full-time property managers manages 140 to 180 leases in just a standard 40-hour work week. And this is somebody who's being paid
Wow.
maybe $52,000 a month. This is not past experience, high caliber property manager. This is just somebody who knows how to support households and let them run their houses. That's it.
Wow. Wow. So obviously you're not in this to do it for free and to run a nonprofit. The returns on these have to be much more lucrative to look into this space. Returns are going to vary by home and market, et cetera. But let's just assume that I can rent a 4x2 house for $2,000 in a normal market. What kind of premium could I see by investing in this space?
So, I mean, you're usually room rental market differs a lot different from normal rental market, and almost every market. And really, if you're in Ottumwa, Iowa, or Kansas City, or El Paso, or Estes Park, Colorado, you're going to be somewhere between 700 and 950 a month. If you're in the middle of Boulder or Austin, you might get up to 1,000 a month
per room.
Just per room. Yeah. So to say with the house you're talking about, a 4.2. My property management company does have a 4.2 under management. We don't recommend these. The more people, the better for the renters, the better for the bottom line, but specifically the better for the renters. But a 4.2 that would make 2,000. I would say in most markets, even smaller, Sioux City, Iowa, whatever, would make, let's see, 800 a room. So times 4. So you're looking at 3,200 a room. But more specifically, I would say, get a 5-bedroom house, turn the, you don't want more than one living room. So actually, do you want me to, I've got a house that's about to close, in Jacksonville. You want me to just tell you the numbers quick?
Yeah.
Is that helpful?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is, let's see, this is a $420,000 house. Let me see, I'm partnering with somebody with a VA loan, right? So I've done all my houses with no money. So they want to do a VA loan. They want to live in the house. So they're getting a 0 down loan, but they want that house to make them money. So they're bringing 15,000. What this is going to do is it's going to take, you want one nice living room in the house. But unlike my family, I don't know if yours is the same, Matt, but we have a playroom that the kids can trash, right? And you might want, most rooms, most houses of an okay size have 3 living rooms, right? Or one is huge. It's like the rec room, right? So you want one nice living room with a huge ass screen TV, right? People can enjoy that. But adults without kids in the house, they don't want more than one living room, because that's another place where they leave their shoes. They have to clean. It gets dusty, right? So you turn those other rooms, as long as they've got, the compliant window, that kind of thing, you turn them into bedrooms, and they're usually pretty good sized bedrooms. So just to say, this house is going to make $6,300 in rent. Its mortgage is just south of $3,300. So its net profit is $3,003.84. Its cash ROI will be 240%. I mean, I just don't know things that beat that. Like if I'm buying in,
sounds like a pretty good deal.
Yeah, if I'm buying in the Denver market, I'm not cash flowing as much, but like my appreciation is crushing it, and it's like basically recession proof, right? So yeah,
amazing. Well, Grant, this is fantastic. I didn't know how deep this space got. I thought it was just typical rent by the room. I didn't know about policies, procedures, different types of homes. So thank you for that. I want to transition us, though, to our last round. We call this the 4 toppings. Our first one is, what is your favorite book, or what is a book you've read recently that's given you a paradigm shift?
Oh man, I just finished this book. by Jason Dries. It's funny because I didn't plan it being there, but for the third time. And I realized this morning, I just finished the book. I've read it once a year, Think and Grow Rich. I realized it's really just the updated version of Think and Grow Rich, right? And just not as long. Holy moly, that book's long. But that book, the Do the Impossible, I mean, the simple frame shifting exercise and thinking about how to understand growth. I mean, I'm a Tony Robbins like nerd. I've been drinking that Kool-Aid for a long time. So I didn't think I was going to find new stuff, because if there's new stuff, Tony Robbins finds it and includes it, right? But that book, like, I mean, no wonder Brandon Turner, like, was able to crush it with this guy's coaching. So yeah, that's been rocking my face off.
I have to check it out. Check it out. Our second one is, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I think chill out. Yeah, just chill out.
What does that mean?
Chill out. It's like, in most cases, things are going to be fine. And when I chill out, other people chill out. I enjoy, I mean, me being not chilled out doesn't fix things any better. So, I mean, it's probably attributed to my dad before I even knew language, right? Just chill out. Not in the sense of jerk way, just chill out. Oh yeah. Just chill out.
Yeah. My wife says that's something actually, one of my superpowers, like things are going awry and I'm just kind of calm and steady. It's like, what's the worst that could happen in this situation? It'll figure itself out. So, our third
that's like a more powerful superpower than, like, I don't know, like flying or teleportation, right? Just chill out.
Our third is, what is the thing that you're most proud of in your life?
Oh man, I'm going to be so boring on this. My kids, right? I had such high expectations for being a dad. And when I became a dad, it just blew those expectations away, right? Like, I mean, how life is that, like, you get to have sex, it makes a human. You're like, what? And this human's awesome. I mean, there's not reason. I mean, yeah, maybe there's reasons I like my kids, but that's not the reason I like them. I just like them because they're my kids. And then it's like, I get to know my dad more because of being around my kids. I get to know me more. I get to know my wife more. Anyway, yeah. I mean, I feel like I hated when people would give this answer. I'm most proud of my kids, but I am. Otherwise, I'll cop out and say I really like partner acrobatics, and I'm really proud of some cool moves I got down. So that's it.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, it is one of those things. Kids change your perspective on the world, and help see things in a different way. And I mean, it's definitely calmed me down a lot too, because you realize that you can't control when a 4-year-old is angry and things like that. So our fourth and final one is, if you could sit down and eat a bowl of ice cream with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Man, there's so Vincent van Gogh. I think that'd be good.
Very interesting answer.
Yeah, and I didn't. I knew the questions would come in, and I was like, maybe I should have thought of this ahead of time. But Vince van Gogh. So I first learned about him because you got his Starry Night thing, and you got this like there's all these anti, like, Christian imagery stuff in his things. But I actually learned later that this guy, his dad was a preacher. He hated that stuff because at that time, the religious were just the really, like, they had all this money and they didn't care about the poor. And anyway, there was this really poor mining town. So he went out there and he wanted to spread the religion. That was Christianity, and he was real passionate about it. So he drew about it. Lots of his pictures are so dark because he got so much around these people that it was very despondent. And then, he did weird things, like he cut off his ear, and then eventually, like, he took his own life. But, like, this guy was so, like, he knew both worlds, right? He was in this rich, like, aristocracy, and he left it to go here to, like, become part of these people. And then, that being said, he hasn't written a ton. So it's not like we have the autobiography of Vincent van Gogh, but I think that guy's got to be worth eating ice cream with, right?
Man, that is the most unique answer I think I've gotten on the show. I definitely did not expect a painter from what, the 1600s, 1500s. So that is
You're good at compliments, man. I've been complimented. This was awesome.
Well, Grant, fantastic to have you on the show. I learned a ton about this space. If our listeners wanted to reach out to you or learn more about what you've got going on, where is the best place we can point them?
Oh, so check it out. This is I'm glad you asked. So if they go to livingsmithpro.com/ice cream, right? So this is just for people listening. There's one, we do a 5-day free training for co-living, and it is awesome. If you are curious, I just teach like crazy. It's incredible. But and there's a couple other goodies in there if you go there. But yeah, so livingsmithpro.com/ice cream. It's don't even go to our website. You can, but you can't get access to the stuff that I put in that domain.
Awesome. We will link to that in the show notes. And then Grant, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Matt. This is great.
Thank you for listening to Ice Cream with Investors. If you like what we serve you here, it would mean the world to me if you would like, subscribe, and leave a review on your favorite podcast app.